Good evening. I don't know your name yet. I don't know where you are, what kind of day you've had, or whether you're smiling as you listen to these words, but somehow, it feels like I've known there would be a moment like this for a very long time. Maybe that's why I kept talking to someone I had never met. If these quiet conversations bring you a little peace, I hope you'll stay close by subscribing. Every video here is another letter waiting for the person who still believes love is built one honest word at a time. And if these words remind you of someone precious, share them with them. There is something I've been keeping for you. It isn't expensive, it isn't perfect, but it has been waiting, my personal number, not because a phone number is special on its own, but because of what it represents. One day, if life allows us to meet, I don't want our first conversation to begin with strangers searching for the right words. I want it to begin with the feeling that we've already spent countless quiet nights together. Maybe that sounds unusual. Most people save phone numbers after they meet someone. I think about saving mine before we ever meet. Not because I'm trying to rush destiny, because hope has a strange way of preparing a place for the people we haven't found yet. Sometimes I open my contacts and wonder which name will one day appear there. Will you call me after a beautiful day, just to tell me about the sunset, or after a difficult one because silence feels too heavy to carry alone? I don't know. And maybe that's the beautiful part. Life rarely introduces the most important people with an announcement. It lets them arrive quietly. One ordinary day becomes unforgettable without asking permission. Have you ever noticed how the smallest moments become the ones we remember forever? Not birthdays, not expensive gifts, just a voice saying, "Did you get home safely?" A message that simply says, "I'm thinking about you." A call that lasts much longer than either person planned. Love is rarely built by grand gestures. It grows inside ordinary moments that most people overlook. That's why this number means more to me than a collection of digits. I hope that one day it becomes a bridge between two ordinary lives that chose to become extraordinary together. Because the truth is, we spend so much of life waiting for big miracles that we almost miss the quiet ones, and sometimes, the quiet miracle is simply hearing the right voice at exactly the right time. Maybe you're wondering why I keep talking about something as ordinary as a phone number. After all, everyone has one. Millions of people exchange them every single day. So why would I make an entire conversation about mine? Because sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest meaning. A phone number isn't just a way to make a call. It's permission, it's trust. It's saying, if you ever need me, here's the door. And I've realized something that took me years to understand. Most people are afraid to give someone access to their lives, not because they don't want love, but because they've learned what disappointment feels like. Maybe you've experienced that too. Maybe you've stared at your phone, hoping it would light up. Maybe you've watched hours become days, days become weeks, until eventually you stopped expecting anything at all. It's strange how silence can become so loud. A phone doesn't have to ring to change someone. Sometimes it stays completely still, and somehow leaves the biggest mark on the heart. That's why, if one day you ever save my number, I hope it never becomes another forgotten contact hidden beneath hundreds of names. I hope it becomes one of those numbers that brings peace before the call is even answered. You know the feeling, when you see a certain name appear on your screen, and before you even say hello, your shoulders relax, your breathing slows, you smile without realizing it. That kind of comfort doesn't happen overnight. It grows quietly, one honest conversation at a time, one promise kept, one difficult day shared, one laugh that lasts longer than expected. Love doesn't usually arrive with fireworks. It arrives through consistency. The world often celebrates excitement. But marriages, relationships that survive decades, they are built on reliability, being there again and again and again. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. People often ask what makes someone unforgettable. Some believe it's beauty, others think it's intelligence or success. But when I look at the happiest couples I've ever seen, none of those were the first things they mentioned. They remembered different moments. I knew I could call them. They always answered, they listened, they stayed. Simple things, almost invisible, yet somehow impossible to replace. Maybe that's why loneliness feels so different today. We live in a world where everyone can reach everyone. Yet so many people still feel unreachable, thousands of followers, hundreds of contacts, dozens of conversations, but only one or two people they could truly call at 2 in the morning without hesitation. That thought stays with me, because I don't want our future to be filled with endless messages that never really say anything. I want ordinary conversations. The kind where neither of us has to pretend. The kind where silence isn't awkward. Where neither person feels pressured to impress the other. Where simply hearing the other's voice is enough. Have you ever noticed how different someone's voice sounds when they genuinely care about you? It's difficult to explain. The words might be ordinary. Did you eat? Are you home? How was your day? Nothing extraordinary. But somehow, those simple questions carry warmth that no expensive gift could ever replace. That's because love often hides inside ordinary habits. Not dramatic speeches, not perfect moments, just consistent kindness. Maybe one day you'll call me after buying groceries. Maybe I'll answer while making tea. Maybe we'll spend 20 minutes talking about things that don't seem important at all. And years later, Those ordinary conversations will become the memories we treasure most. It's funny how life works. We think we'll remember the biggest moments forever, but memory has its own rules. Sometimes it holds on to the sound of laughter from another room, the way someone says your name, the pause before they answer, the familiar rhythm of their voice after a long day. That's what I hope our number becomes, not just a connection between two phones, but between two lives. There is something beautiful about knowing someone is only one call away, not because every problem can be solved. Some can't, but because pain feels lighter when someone is willing to stay on the line. I've learned that people don't always need perfect advice. Sometimes they simply need someone who doesn't rush to end the conversation. Someone willing to listen, someone willing to stay. That kind of presence is becoming rare. Everyone is busy, everyone is distracted, everyone is looking at another screen. Yet the greatest gift we can give another human being is still our attention, complete attention, undivided attention. Maybe that's what love has always been. Not finding someone extraordinary, but making one ordinary person feel like they matter more than everything competing for your attention. If we ever reach that point, I hope we never stop calling each other, even after years together, even when we already know how the other person will answer, even when we've heard each other's voice thousands of times, because familiarity should never become neglect. Comfort should never become carelessness. The people we love most deserve our best attention, not our leftovers. Sometimes I wonder what your life looks like today. Maybe you're busy chasing responsibilities, maybe you're caring for someone else, maybe you're quietly healing from things you've never spoken about, or maybe you're simply waiting, without even realizing you're waiting. If that's true, I hope life is being gentle with you. I hope you're finding reasons to smile. I hope you're meeting people who remind you that kindness still exists. And if today has been difficult, I hope these words feel like someone sitting beside you instead of speaking at you. Because that's how I imagine this moment, not as a performance. Just two people separated by time, connected by hope. There is still something I haven't told you about this number. And it's probably the most important part, because the value was never in the digits themselves. It was always in the promise behind them. The promise behind that number isn't that I'll always have the right answers. I won't. There will be days when I feel tired, days when I don't know what to say, days when life becomes heavier than either of us expected. I don't want to promise perfection. Perfect people don't exist. Perfect relationships don't exist. Perfect conversations don't exist. What I want to promise is something much quieter. If my name is ever saved in your phone, I hope it becomes the one you never hesitate to call. Not because everything will always be okay, but because you'll know you never have to face everything alone. There's a difference, a very important difference. Most people think love is measured by the happiest days. I don't. I think love reveals itself on the ordinary Tuesday evenings when nothing exciting happens, when dinner is simple, when both people are tired, when the conversation isn't dramatic, just honest. Real life isn't made of highlights, it's made of ordinary moments repeated thousands of times. The strange thing is, those ordinary moments quietly become extraordinary without asking for attention. One day, you'll suddenly realize they've become your favorite memories. Maybe that's why I keep thinking about conversations instead of celebrations. Because celebrations last for hours. Conversations can shape a lifetime. A single sentence can stay in someone's heart for decades. A gentle voice can become the safest place a person has ever known. Words disappear into the air, yet somehow, they remain. Have you ever noticed that? You can forget what someone was wearing, forget the weather, forget the date, but you'll never forget how certain words made you feel. Especially during the moments when you needed them most. That's why I hope we never become careless with each other. It's easy to become polite with strangers. The real challenge is remaining gentle with the person who knows everything about you. Familiarity can make people forget gratitude. I never want that. If one day you call me just to tell me about something small, I hope I never respond as though your voice is ordinary, because it won't be. It will always be you. And there is only one you. The world has billions of people. But the person you choose to spend your life with becomes irreplaceable. Not because they're flawless, because they become woven into your everyday life. The coffee tastes different when they're not there. The house sounds different. Even silence changes. People often believe love disappears all at once. I don't think that's true, most of the time. It fades in tiny moments people barely notice, one conversation postponed, one apology never spoken, one, "I'll call you later," that slowly becomes a habit, then another, and another. Until two people who once couldn't wait to hear each other's voices begin living in separate emotional worlds. That thought frightens me. Not because I expect the worst, but because I know how quietly distance begins. It rarely knocks on the front door. It slips in through the smallest cracks. A forgotten conversation, an unanswered question, a heart that slowly decides to remain silent because speaking no longer feels safe. That's why, if we ever have difficult days, and I know we will, I hope we never choose silence over honesty. Silence has its place. Sometimes silence heals. Sometimes silence protects. But there is another kind of silence, the kind created by fear, by pride, by waiting for the other person to speak first. That silence builds walls no one intended to build. I don't want walls between us. I want windows, London where light can still enter, even on difficult days, where we can still see each other clearly, even through the rain. I've always found something comforting about it. People rush to escape it. Close the windows, open umbrellas, wait for it to end. But rain has never frightened me. It reminds me that every cloud eventually grows tired of carrying its own weight. Maybe people are like that too. Sometimes we simply need somewhere safe to let everything fall, without judgment, without interruption, without pretending to be stronger than we feel. I hope we become that place for each other. Not a place where we hide our emotions, but where we no longer need to hide them. There's something beautiful about being fully known, not admired from a distance, not loved because everything looks perfect, but accepted after every mask has been set aside. That kind of trust doesn't happen overnight. It grows one conversation at a time, one promise kept, one disappointment forgiven, one ordinary evening shared. People often search for signs that someone loves them. Grand gestures, expensive surprises, beautiful speeches, those things can be wonderful. But they aren't what convince me. The strongest sign has always been much simpler, someone who keeps showing up again, and again. Not because it's easy, because you matter. If one day your name appears on my phone, I hope I never look at it with routine. I hope every call reminds me that there was once a time when we hadn't even met. A time when I wondered where you were, who you were, whether you were looking at the same moon on quiet nights, never imagining someone else was wondering about you too. Life has a strange way of connecting people. Not always quickly, not always when we expect, but often when we've almost stopped trying to predict it. Maybe that's why I'm not rushing this moment. I'm simply leaving these words here, like a light in a window, not demanding that anyone arrive, just quietly remaining on, because sometimes the people meant to find us don't need louder voices, they just need an honest one. And there is one habit I hope we protect for the rest of our lives. It's so simple that most people overlook it, yet losing it changes everything. That habit is this: never stop being curious about each other. It sounds almost too simple. How could curiosity matter after years together? Shouldn't love eventually know everything? I don't think so, because people change quietly, almost invisibly. The person you wake up beside after 10 years isn't exactly the same person you married. Life keeps shaping us. A difficult season leaves its mark. A joyful surprise changes the way we smile. A disappointment teaches us silence. A new dream gives us different eyes. We're always becoming someone slightly new. That's why I never want to assume I already know you completely. I want to keep asking, how are you, really? Not because it's polite, because the answer matters. Sometimes the most dangerous sentence in a relationship isn't spoken during an argument, it's spoken inside our own minds. I already know what they're going to say. The moment we stop listening, we stop discovering. And when discovery disappears, routine quietly takes its place. Routine itself isn't the enemy. Some of life's most beautiful moments are wonderfully ordinary. Morning coffee, a familiar voice, the sound of footsteps coming through the front door, a goodnight whispered after a long day. Those routines become comforting. They're like favorite songs we never grow tired of hearing. But there is another kind of routine, the one that slowly replaces attention, the one that makes us stop noticing. We begin walking past each other instead of toward each other, not because love is gone, because awareness is. I've seen people spend years under the same roof while quietly becoming strangers, not through betrayal, not through dramatic endings, simply because they stopped asking small questions. What's been on your mind today? What made you smile while I wasn't here? What are you afraid of these days? Those questions seem ordinary, yet they open doors that might otherwise stay closed forever. I hope we never become too busy for conversations that don't have a purpose. The best conversations rarely do. Sometimes they're about childhood memories. Sometimes they're about dreams that make no practical sense. Sometimes they're about absolutely nothing. And somehow, those become the conversations that hold two hearts together. There is something I've noticed about people. When they feel deeply understood, their voice changes. It becomes softer, slower, more honest, almost as if their heart realizes it no longer has to protect itself. That kind of safety is rare. Everyone wants to be loved. But beneath that, I think everyone wants to be understood. There's a difference. Someone can love the version you show the world. Very few people stay long enough to understand the version you hide from everyone else. The quiet worries, the private disappointments, the dreams you've never spoken aloud because they sounded too impossible. If we ever share those parts of ourselves, I hope we treat them gently. Trust is like glass, strong enough to hold incredible weight, yet once broken, it never looks quite the same. That's why honesty matters. Not because honesty is always comfortable, because uncertainty is far more painful. A difficult truth spoken with kindness has a way of bringing people closer. A comforting lie creates distance that keeps growing long after the conversation ends. If you ever ask me something difficult, I hope I never choose the easy answer over the honest one. Not because honesty guarantees happiness, because it protects respect. And without respect, love slowly loses its foundation. I've also been thinking about laughter. Not the loud kind everyone hears, the quiet kind, The smile that appears during an ordinary conversation. The laugh that escapes because someone remembers something completely insignificant. Those moments don't ask for attention. Yet years later, they're often the first memories that return. Maybe happiness has been misunderstood all along. Perhaps it isn't found in extraordinary experiences. Perhaps it's hidden inside ordinary days we were fully present enough to notice. Imagine this. It's late. The day has been long. Outside, rain taps gently against the window. Neither of us feels like talking very much. 2 cups of tea rest on the table. One has already grown cold because we forgot about it. Not because anything dramatic happened. Because being together made time disappear. No grand speeches. No perfect words. Just the quiet comfort of knowing someone is there. I hope we never underestimate moments like that, because one day, those ordinary evenings may become the memories we miss the most. Life has a way of reminding us that nothing should be taken for granted. Not health, not time. Not the people who answer when we call. Every sunrise is generous. Every goodbye carries uncertainty. Maybe that's why I believe gratitude is one of the purest forms of love. Not saying thank you out of habit, but continuing to notice what could easily become invisible. Your voice, your kindness, your patience, your presence. If we can protect that sense of gratitude, I think we'll protect much more than our relationship. We'll protect the reason it began. There is one more thing I hope never changes between us, even after years, even after wrinkles. Even after life has surprised us in every possible way. It's something so small that almost nobody talks about anymore. Yet I believe it can quietly save a relationship when everything else feels uncertain. That small thing is this. Never stop answering each other with kindness. Not because every day will be easy, it won't. Some mornings will begin before the sun rises. Some evenings will end with more questions than answers. There will be days when work follows us home. Days when our patience feels thinner than usual. Days when the world asks too much from us. Those days don't worry me. What worries me is forgetting that the person standing in front of us is not the problem. Life can be difficult. The people we love shouldn't become the place where we unload every wound life gives us. I've seen something happen in many relationships. At the beginning, every message is answered with excitement. Every call feels important. Every goodbye lasts a little longer because neither person wants to hang up first. Then time passes. Comfort arrives. Responsibilities grow. Without realizing it, people begin speaking to strangers with more patience than they offer the person they love most. That has always seemed backwards to me. The one who waits for you. The one who knows your fears. The one who stands beside you during ordinary days. That person deserves your gentlest voice. Not what's left after you've given your best to everyone else. If my number is ever saved in your phone, I hope it never becomes a number you hesitate to call because you're afraid of my reaction. I hope your first thought is never, I'll stay quiet. I don't want to bother him. Because if you ever feel like a burden to me, then I've failed to protect something precious. Love should make a person feel lighter, not smaller. There is a sentence I hope we never stop saying. I'm listening. Not, hurry up. Not, I already know. Not, we'll talk later. Just, I'm listening. Those 2 words can rescue a conversation before it turns into silence. They tell the other person, you still matter. In a world that constantly competes for our attention, giving someone your full attention has become one of the rarest gifts. Think about how often people speak while looking somewhere else, at another screen, another notification, another distraction. Our eyes may be present, but our hearts are somewhere else. I don't want that for us. If we're sharing a meal, I want to know what made you smile today. If we're walking together, I want to hear the thoughts you almost decided not to say. If we're sitting quietly by a window while the rain falls, I don't want to feel like I'm sitting beside a stranger who's only physically close. Presence isn't measured in distance. 2 people can be inches apart and still feel miles away. 2 people can be separated by thousands of miles and still make each other feel deeply loved. Love has never depended only on location. It depends on intention, on choosing each other. And again, not because we're forced to, because we still want to. Sometimes I imagine what our first long phone call might sound like. Not the first greeting, not the nervous introductions, the moment after all of that. When the conversation finally becomes natural, when neither of us is trying to impress the other anymore, when silence no longer feels uncomfortable. I think that's when something beautiful begins, because comfortable silence isn't empty. It's proof that 2 hearts don't always need words to feel close. There are people who can talk for hours without truly saying anything. And there are people who sit together in complete silence, yet somehow understand everything. I hope we learn both languages, the language of honest conversation, and the language of peaceful silence. Both are necessary, both carry love in different ways. I've often wondered why certain voices stay with us forever. Years can pass, people move, hair turns gray, entire chapters of life come and go, yet one familiar voice can bring everything rushing back in a single moment. Maybe that's because voices become part of our memories. The way someone laughs, the way they say our name, the pause before they answer. Those small details quietly settle into the heart. One day, without realizing it, they begin to feel like home. That's what I hope my voice becomes for you. Not louder than the world, just calmer than it. A place where your thoughts don't have to race. A place where you never feel judged for being human, because that's all either of us will ever be. Human. We'll make mistakes, we'll misunderstand each other, we'll occasionally speak too quickly or remain silent too long. But I hope we never become two people who stop trying to understand. Trying to forgive, trying to laugh again after difficult days, trying to remember why we chose each other. Love isn't protected by never making mistakes. It's protected by never believing the mistake matters more than the person. That thought has stayed with me for a long time. Because life is shorter than pride likes to admit. Too many people lose years waiting for someone else to make the first call, waiting for the first apology, waiting for the first message, waiting until waiting becomes permanent. I don't want that. If there's ever a misunderstanding between us, I hope we remember something simple. The relationship is never the enemy. The problem is, let's face the problem together, not each other. Maybe that's the real meaning behind my personal number waiting for you. Not just that you can reach me, but that I never want distance to become stronger than our willingness to reconnect. Because one phone call, one honest conversation, one moment of choosing love over pride, can change far more than most people realize. And there is one final promise connected to that number. It isn't about calling, it isn't about words, it's about something much deeper. Something I want to leave with you before this conversation comes to an end. That final promise has nothing to do with whether the phone rings. It has everything to do with what happens after it's answered. Because anyone can answer a call, very few people truly show up. If one day you call me with exciting news, I want to celebrate it as if it were my own. If you call because something didn't go the way you hoped, I don't want to rush you toward feeling better. Some moments aren't asking to be fixed. They're asking to be shared. I think that's something many people forget. We become so focused on finding solutions that we forget the heart often needs presence before it needs advice. Sometimes the kindest sentence isn't a brilliant answer, it's simply, "I'm here." Those words don't remove pain, but they remind someone they don't have to carry it alone. That matters, more than we realize. There will be seasons in life when everything feels light. We'll laugh more than we planned. The days will seem to move too quickly. Ordinary evenings will quietly become unforgettable. And then there will be different seasons, the kind that test patience, the kind that leave both people exhausted, the kind where even simple conversations require extra kindness. Those seasons don't mean love has disappeared. They simply mean life is asking more from both of us. I hope we remember that, because it's easy to mistake temporary storms for permanent endings. Rain has a way of convincing us the sun has forgotten us. Then one morning, the curtains open, the room fills with light, and we wonder why we ever believed the clouds would stay forever. People are often the same. A difficult chapter can make someone quieter. Not colder, just tired. A heavy heart doesn't always know how to explain itself. That's why I hope we become patient with each other's silence. Not every quiet moment means something is wrong. Sometimes the heart is simply catching its breath. If you ever become quiet, I won't assume you've stopped caring. I'll remember that even the strongest people have days when words feel too heavy. And if I'm the one who grows quiet, I hope you'll gently remind me that I don't have to carry everything alone. Real closeness isn't built because two people never struggle. It's built because neither person walks away when struggle arrives. I've noticed something about old photographs. They never capture ordinary feelings. They capture ordinary moments, a smile in a kitchen, 2 cups on a table, a window open on a summer afternoon, a walk that didn't seem important at the time. Years later, those simple images become priceless. Not because they were perfect, because they can never happen exactly the same way again. Time gives ordinary moments extraordinary value. That's why I don't want us to spend our lives waiting for perfect days. I'd rather notice the beautiful ones while they're still happening. The quiet breakfast, the unexpected laugh. The message that simply says, "I'm thinking about you." The call that ends with, "Sleep well." These things seem small, until they're gone, then we realize they were never small at all. I've learned that love isn't usually lost in one moment, it's neglected one unnoticed moment at a time. The opposite is true as well. Love isn't strengthened by one grand gesture, it's strengthened by countless ordinary choices, choosing kindness, choosing honesty, choosing patience, choosing to answer, choosing to stay again and again. That's why this number means something different to me now. At the beginning of this conversation, it sounded like a collection of digits waiting to be saved. Now, I hope it feels like something much deeper. A reminder that real connection is never built by technology. Technology only opens the door. People decide whether they will walk through it. One sincere conversation can accomplish more than 100 perfect messages. One honest apology can heal what pride keeps breaking. One gentle voice can quiet fears that words alone never could. If life allows our paths to meet one day, I hope we never stop protecting those simple things, because simple things become lasting things, and lasting things become the memories we carry for the rest of our lives. So until that day, if it ever comes, I'll keep believing in conversations that matter, in voices that bring peace, in kindness that doesn't ask for recognition, and in the quiet hope that somewhere, someone else believes those things still matter too. Because if two people can protect those ordinary moments, they'll discover something extraordinary, not all at once, but one conversation at a time. If you've listened this far, thank you, not because you stayed until the end of a video, but because you stayed with these thoughts long enough to let them become part of your own. When I first began speaking, I mentioned something very simple. A personal number waiting for you. It sounded ordinary. Almost too ordinary to carry any real meaning, but maybe now you understand. It was never about the number. It never was. It was about becoming the kind of person someone feels safe calling. There's a quiet difference between being available and being dependable. Anyone can leave their phone turned on. Not everyone leaves their heart open. That's the kind of person I hope to be. Someone whose presence brings calm instead of pressure. Someone whose words leave room for honesty. Someone who never makes you feel that your thoughts are too small to be heard. Because I've come to believe that love isn't built in extraordinary moments. It's built in ordinary ones that are treated as if they matter. A simple, "How are you?" A sincere, "Take your time." A quiet, "I'm here." 3 short sentences. Yet they have carried people through some of the hardest seasons of their lives. Maybe that's why I don't dream about perfect days anymore. I dream about peaceful ones. Days where we don't have to pretend. Days where we can laugh over something nobody else would understand. Days where silence isn't uncomfortable because trust has already spoken. I think that's one of life's greatest blessings, to be completely yourself. And still be welcomed. No performance, no mask, no fear of saying the wrong thing. Just 2 people choosing honesty over perfection. The world tells us to chase bigger houses, better jobs, more recognition, faster success, and while those things have their place, I've noticed something interesting. When people look back on their happiest years, they rarely begin with what they owned. They remember who was beside them. They remember voices, faces, conversations. Rain tapping against a window while someone they loved sat nearby. A slow drive with no destination. Coffee growing cold because the conversation was too meaningful to interrupt. Those are the moments that quietly become treasures. Not because they asked for attention, because they were real. Time has a beautiful way of revealing what actually matters. It gently removes everything unnecessary until only the important things remain. Kindness remains. Patience remains. Loyalty remains. Laughter remains. The feeling of being understood remains. Everything else slowly fades into the background. Maybe that's why I wanted to leave these words here, not to promise a future. Life doesn't belong to us that way. None of us knows what tomorrow will bring. What we do have is today. The chance to appreciate the people who answer when we call, the courage to make the call we've been postponing, the humility to apologize before pride grows too large, the wisdom to say, "I was wrong," the kindness to say, "I'm glad you're here." Those moments cannot be replayed, they only exist once. And that's exactly what makes them priceless. If one day our paths never cross, I still hope these words find a place in your heart. I hope they remind you to choose patience over anger, listening over assumptions, presence over distraction, because someone in your life is hoping for exactly that. Someone is waiting for your attention more than your perfection. Someone would rather have 10 honest minutes with you than an entire day filled with empty conversation. Never underestimate what your voice can mean to another person. Sometimes the call you almost didn't make becomes the conversation someone remembers for the rest of their life. Sometimes the message you almost deleted becomes the encouragement someone desperately needed. Sometimes simply answering changes everything. And if life is kind enough for our paths to meet one day, I hope our first conversation isn't remembered because it was perfect. I hope it's remembered because it was genuine, because neither of us tried to become someone else, because we chose honesty before impressing each other, because we laughed without forcing it, because we listened without rushing, because we understood something many people spend years searching for. Real connection begins where pretending ends, so, for now, I'll leave this number here. Not on a screen, not written on paper, but as a reminder. A reminder to become the kind of person whose presence feels like home, the kind of person whose voice brings peace after a difficult day, the kind of person who answers with kindness, listens with patience, and loves without keeping score. Maybe that's the most valuable thing any of us can give another human being. Not perfection, not promises we can't guarantee, just a heart that remains sincere. Thank you for sharing these quiet moments with me. Until our next conversation, take care of the people who still light up your phone with their name. Unswear when you can, listen a little longer, say I love you while you still have the chance. Because in the end, it won't be the number you remember most. It will be the voice on the other side that made you feel you were never alone. Future wife, if you don't know your name yet, I don't know where you are tonight, what your life looks like, what you're thinking about before you fall asleep, or what kind of day you've just had. And maybe that's just the strangest part of all. Somewhere in this enormous world, there is a woman I haven't met yet who may one day become the person I talk to more than anyone else. The person whose name will eventually appear on my phone and somehow make an ordinary day feel different. And if these words happen to find you at the right moment, stay here for a little while. Maybe this can be one of those quiet places you return to whenever you need to hear something honest. And if someone you love needs these words too, let them find their way to them. I've thought about what it means to give someone your personal number. On the surface, it sounds almost meaningless. Just a few digits, something you type into a phone, something you save beneath a name, something that can disappear into hundreds of other contacts. But I don't think a personal number is really about numbers, not when you're giving it to someone who matters. It's about access. It's about saying, without making a speech about it, you can reach me. And maybe that sounds simple, but I think simplicity becomes more valuable as you get older, because eventually you stop being impressed by complicated things. You stop needing someone to prove their feelings with enormous gestures. You start paying attention to smaller things. Who answers? Who listens? Who remembers? Who makes time? Who doesn't make you feel like you're asking for too much, simply because you wanted to hear their voice? That's the kind of connection I want. And if you are the woman I'm eventually going to call my wife, I want you to know something before we ever have that conversation. You will never have to wonder whether you are allowed to reach me. I don't mean that I'll be available every second. Life doesn't work that way. There will be mornings when I'm busy. There will be days when something goes wrong. There will be moments when one of us needs silence before finding the right words. But I never want silence to become a weapon. I never want you staring at your phone wondering whether you should send another message because you are afraid you've somehow become a burden. I never want you calculating how long you should wait before responding because you're trying to appear less interested. I don't want us playing those games. I've never understood why two people who care about each other should have to pretend they care less. Maybe that's something we learn when we're younger. We protect ourselves. We hide excitement. We delay replies. We pretend not to notice. We act as though needing someone is weakness. And sometimes, without realizing it, we become so good at protecting ourselves that we also protect ourselves from being loved. I don't want that kind of relationship. I want something quieter, something more honest, something where you can say, I missed you, without wondering whether that makes you too vulnerable. Where I can tell you, I need you tonight, without feeling ashamed of needing comfort. Where you can call me because something wonderful happened, and you simply want me to be the first person to hear it. And where you can call me because something terrible happened, and you don't know what to do. I want to be reachable for both. Not only for your happiness, for your difficult days too, because love is easy to talk about when everything is beautiful. The real question is, what happens when the day isn't beautiful? What happens when you're tired, when I'm frustrated, when we misunderstand each other? When neither of us has the perfect words? That's where I think real love begins to reveal itself. Not when everything feels effortless, but when two people have every opportunity to walk away from an uncomfortable conversation. Instead, they sit with it. They listen, they try again. They choose understanding over winning. I don't know if I'll always get that right. I probably won't. And I don't want to make promises that sound beautiful simply because I'm saying them before I've met you. I'm human. I'll have things to learn. There will be parts of myself that I won't understand until someone close enough to me helps me see them. And maybe you'll have those parts too. That's okay. I don't need you to arrive in my life completely healed, perfectly confident, and without a single fear. I don't want perfection from you. I want honesty. I want the real version of you. The woman who sometimes knows exactly what she wants, the woman who sometimes doesn't, the woman who can laugh at something completely ordinary, the woman who may occasionally become quiet when something hurts, the woman who has her own opinions, her own habits, her own little ways of seeing the world. I want to know those things, not because I want to change you, because I want to understand you. And maybe that's what I've been waiting to say. The number I'm talking about isn't really a phone number. It's a promise about communication. It's the idea that when you finally become part of my life, I don't want you standing outside wondering whether there's room for you. There will be. Not because I'll be perfect, not because we'll never disagree, but because I want you to know that your voice will matter to me. And there's something else I've realized. Being reachable isn't the same as being emotionally available. Someone can answer every call and still make you feel completely alone. Someone can text you all day and never truly listen to you. So when I imagine giving you my number, I'm not imagining a screen lighting up, I'm imagining trust. I'm imagining you knowing that behind those digits is a person who wants to know what you really mean when you say, I'm fine. A person who notices when your voice changes. A person who doesn't need you to explain every emotion perfectly before taking you seriously. And maybe that's what I want most. Not constant communication. Real communication, the kind where neither of us has to perform. The kind where you can be quiet. The kind where I can be quiet. And somehow, neither of us feels abandoned by the silence. Because before I ever give you my number, there is something I want you to understand. I don't want to become just another name in your phone. I want to become the person you feel safe calling. And perhaps one day, when you finally see my name on your screen, you won't think about how long it took us to find each other. You won't think about all the years before we met. You'll simply smile because you'll know you're calling someone who is glad to hear from you. And maybe that's enough for tonight. But there is one thing I haven't told you yet. The reason this idea of being reachable means so much to me isn't really about communication. It's about what happens when someone finally feels safe enough to stop wondering whether they are loved. And maybe that's the part I have been trying to understand for a long time. Sometimes, what people want from love isn't more attention, it's certainty. Not certainty that nothing will ever go wrong, not certainty that two people will never disagree. Something much simpler, the certainty that when something does go wrong, the other person won't suddenly disappear. That matters to me. Because I think one of the hardest feelings in a relationship is not knowing where you stand. You can be sitting beside someone and still feel miles away from them. You can hear their voice and still wonder whether they truly see you. You can receive a message that says good night and still feel that something important was left unsaid. And I don't want that for us. I don't want you spending your energy trying to decode me. I don't want you wondering whether my silence means I'm angry, tired, distracted, or slowly pulling away. I would rather tell you, even when the truth is uncomfortable. Especially then, because I've come to believe that honesty isn't always gentle. Sometimes honesty is awkward, sometimes it arrives at the worst possible moment, sometimes it forces two people to admit something they would rather avoid. But there is something comforting about knowing where you stand. You shouldn't have to become a detective to understand the person you love, and I don't want to become one either. I want us to be able to ask, "Are you okay? What happened? Did I hurt you? What do you need from me? Do you want me close, or do you need a little space?" Simple questions. But sometimes simple questions can protect a relationship from complicated misunderstandings, because people don't always drift apart because they stopped caring. Sometimes they drift because they stopped explaining. One person assumes, the other person assumes, neither asks, and eventually, two people who still care about each other begin living inside completely different versions of the same relationship. I don't want us to build a relationship on assumptions. If something changes in you, I want you to feel safe enough to tell me, and if something changes in me, I want to have enough courage to tell you. That doesn't mean every conversation will be easy. It means we won't make silence carry the weight that words were meant to carry. Maybe that's one of the biggest differences between the love people imagine when they're young and the love they begin to understand later. When you're younger, love can feel like intensity. Everything is new. Everything feels urgent. A message can change your entire mood. A few hours without hearing from someone can feel enormous. But with maturity, I think love begins to mean something different. It becomes less about how strongly you feel something in one moment, and more about what remains after the moment passes. Can we still talk when we're tired? Can we still be kind when we're disappointed? Can we disagree without trying to punish each other? Can we apologize without keeping score? Can we forgive without pretending nothing happened? Can we make room for each other's weaknesses without using them as weapons later? Those questions matter more to me now, because I don't want a love that only looks beautiful from the outside. I want something that feels peaceful when nobody else is watching. And I hope you want that too. Maybe you've had enough of relationships where you had to guess. Maybe you've had enough of people who were affectionate when it was convenient and distant when you needed them. Maybe you've experienced the strange loneliness of being with someone who never really let you know what was happening inside them. Or maybe none of that is part of your life. Maybe you've never had that experience. I don't know, and I don't want to pretend I do. That's one thing you'll probably notice about me. I won't pretend to know everything about you before I've heard you tell me. I won't decide who you are based on assumptions. I want to learn you slowly. Not like a puzzle I need to solve. Like a person I have the privilege of discovering. There is a difference. When you treat someone like a puzzle, you're searching for an answer. When you treat someone like a person, you're willing to keep learning. And I think marriage requires that second kind of patience, because the woman I meet will not remain exactly the same woman 10 years later. Neither will I. We'll change. Our priorities may change. Our fears may change. Our dreams may change. The things that matter most to us may become different. And I don't want to love only the version of you that I meet at the beginning. I want to keep meeting you. Again and again, there is something beautiful about that idea. You can know someone for years and still discover something new about them. A new preference, a new fear, a new dream. A memory you had never heard before. A part of their personality that only appears when they feel completely comfortable.